Good afternoon to everyone. How's everyone doing this afternoon? We've got a few hours to share with each other, so we'd like to ask everyone to relax and get prepared to take some very meaningful information. We're happy to see so many faces out. A few housekeeping initiatives, if I may. One is that if you did not drop your business card out front, then you're going to be missing a significant opportunity potentially. So by the time I finish, you probably want to take a quick second and run back and drop your business card because we like to have that. And to our distinguished panelists here, each of you have gifts in front of you. And this is a last minute we'd like to incorporate. When you finish your presentation, we're going to draw from the basket of gift cards, and you have at least 2 gifts that you will hand out. So that means that you will ask a question. No, you don't even have to ask a question. Let's just draw, and somebody that's listening under the sound of my voice is going to win one of these gifts, okay? So on that note, I want us to get started, and we got an exciting afternoon for you, and I'd like to bring up to the podium Mrs. Zenola Campbell, our Vice President of Airport Concessions. Let's give Zenola a round of applause. How about it?
Good afternoon, everyone. And as Michael had mentioned, thank you so much for coming out. This is going to be one of several different meetings that we're going to have throughout the summer. And I want to thank all of those that came on time, and I want to respect your time and to allow some time for questions afterward, knowing that this process is going to be pretty fluid throughout the first couple of meetings until we can get a lot of the details kind of firmed up. So we are sharing with you what we know today so that we can bring people along through the process and hopefully allow you to have enough time to ask questions and be prepared to when the request for proposal comes out. So without further ado, I'm going to get this started, and I am going to ask Mr. Jeff Benvegnu to come on up.
Thanks, Zenola. I appreciate it. Zenola asked me to come and sort of give you an overview of DFW Airport, sort of how we run business, kind of the lay of the land, so to speak. As most of us know, DFW was opened in the early 70s, actually opened in 1974. It's a huge landmass. It's 30 square miles, over 18,000 acres. It's actually larger than some cities. I think it's larger than Manhattan, I've been told. We have 7 runways here at DFW. Kind of interesting, very efficient runway system. The city of Chicago at O'Hare, you may be familiar, is trying to replicate our runway system at a tune of about $10 billion. So we don't have to spend anything. We already have it. Huge economic impact to the North Texas region from DFW. We estimate about $17 billion a year, and there are about 300,000 full-time jobs generated from DFW. So a major economic impact. Most of you are, I'm sure, familiar with the terminals. Just to give you a little bit of details, we have 5 terminals and roughly 155 gates at DFW. We are actually the 3rd largest airport in the world in terms of operations, 8th in passengers. Sort of hard to see the terminal layout over there, but American operates from terminals A and C with their main line, their jet aircraft. Terminal B is American Eagle, their affiliate commuter partner. Terminal D is our international terminal. American has about 2/3 of that terminal for international and domestic traffic, and then we have the foreign flags with British Airways, Korean, Lufthansa, KLM, etc. And then, of course, Terminal E is where we call it the OAL terminal, all the other airlines, the United, Continental, Delta, etc. One of the things I wanted to point out here too, we've got a major cargo operation at DFW, a real rapidly growing business, about 635,000 U.S. tons that we ship every year. And one of the things about being a large hub airport, there's really a mix of connecting and local traffic. 40% of the passengers that fly out of DFW are local, meaning they live here. The other 60% connect from some other part of the country. So a real robust mix of passengers at DFW. And this sort of shows you that we have who the carriers are at DFW, 18 passenger carriers and 14 cargo. Again, a nice mix of a large hub carrier, an American, plus a robust mix of hub and spoke carriers. I wanted to talk a little bit about the business arrangement at DFW. It's really a unique situation in that a lot of the business practices that we run by are governed by an agreement that was signed between the airlines and DFW Airport back in the early 70s. Just sort of hard to imagine in this day and age that an agreement from that far back dictates a lot of the things that we do. That agreement actually expired at the end of last year. We've extended it for another 9 months as we negotiate a new agreement with the airlines. We operate under what's called a residual agreement, and what that really means is that the airlines are responsible, or well, all the revenues and expenses that are generated at DFW Airport, the airlines are at risk for those, and they enjoy the benefits as well. So what that basically means is the airlines guarantee the bottom line of the airport. No revenues flow off the airport. They're all self-contained. If there's ever a deficit, or likewise if there's a benefit from additional things like concession revenues, the airlines enjoy lower landing fee rates or lower terminal rents. One other interesting thing about DFW is that a lot of airports, the airport is responsible for all the operation and maintenance expenses. Well, they're responsible for the activity. They charge it back to the airlines. In Terminals A and C, American actually performs that maintenance and pays the utilities. So it's sort of a unique situation there. And to get into a little bit of detail, as I said, we operate under a residual agreement. There are a couple different ways that an airport and airline can operate. One's a compensatory arrangement where rather than the airlines having the financial risk, the airport actually takes on that risk. The other part of that is under a compensatory, the airport has control over all capital projects, has the authority to go ahead and say yay or nay on those. And the airport has all the discretionary cash in a compensatory. And I'll get into a little bit here in a second, where as we negotiate this new use agreement, we'll likely end up as a hybrid, as opposed to a pure residual agreement airport that we are today. What this chart shows, and you may have a little bit difficult time to see this, but we have a significant amount of non-airline revenue, as we call it, that's generated at DFW Airport. The dark blue, the lower parts of those columns are what the airlines pay on an annual basis. It's roughly $200 million a year. But we generate here from concessions revenue in the terminal, parking revenue, rental car rents, and so forth, more than that, about $225 million a year. So a significant amount of revenue at DFW is generated from non-airline activity. The red bar just shows PFCs, passenger facility charges, that are generated. So in total, it's about $600 million in revenue that's generated at DFW. I talked a little bit about this new agreement that we're entering into, and I'll just kind of quickly run through this. You know, after 35 years of one agreement and being dictated by those terms, we kind of stood back and said, okay, what should this new agreement look like? We want a rate model that will provide DFW the ability to go and do its capital projects. I'm sure later on today you're going to hear about this terminal development program. What we've wanted to get from the airlines is an approval before we enter into this new agreement to fund $1.8 billion of improvements in all of the terminals except Terminal D. So the new agreement needs to take that into account. Today our landing fee rate is sort of artificially high and our terminal rents are artificially low. We're going to fix that in the new agreement, and a lot of that was just because over 35 years and the way the revenues and expenses flowed, it sort of artificially jumped the landing fee. We're going to get into a new capital development approval process. It's called an MII, a majority and interest approval. We talk about reducing airline costs. That's a little bit dated. We thought when we discovered natural gas here at the airport that we were sitting on about $2.5 billion of revenue. Well, that's sort of fallen off a little bit, so we may not be able to necessarily reduce airline costs because of that revenue that's changed. And a couple other things. Terminal space management, we have to have enough gates to allow airlines to grow. And we're going to make sure that the facilities maintenance and A&C is at the standards that we insist upon. So to sort of summarize, DFW, many advantages. We have all the runways and terminal that we need for really for the foreseen future to allow airlines to grow here and other businesses to grow. We have significant areas for commercial development. You know, I mentioned we have 18,000 acres. Well, at least 6,000 of those acres are undeveloped, and we can develop those for cargo, hangar, or other retail opportunities. Certainly a major advantage of DFW is our large hubbing airline partner, American Airlines, but we also have a real robust group of spoke airlines and international airlines that benefit the region. Our cargo business is growing. We have low costs relative to our competitive airports. And